I stumbled across something recently that completely shook how I understand women. A female therapist with over 15 years of experience started sharing what women actually say about men when no one else is listening. Not what they post on social media, not what they tell their friends, what they confess in complete privacy when they think nobody will ever find out. And brother, it's nothing like what we've been told. See, women have this public narrative about what they want. They'll tell you they want a sensitive guy who listens, someone emotionally available, a man who's in touch with his feelings. And, on paper, that sounds reasonable, right? But behind closed doors, in therapy sessions where they can be brutally honest without judgment, they're saying something completely different. Something that contradicts everything you've been taught about attraction. I'm about to break down the top confessions this therapist revealed. The raw, unfiltered truth about what women actually think about men when they drop the act. Fair warning, some of this is going to sting. But if you can handle it, this information is gold. Confession number 1. I lost attraction when he started opening up too much. This one hits hard because it goes against everything modern culture preaches. We're told women want vulnerable men, men who share their feelings, men who cry, men who open up emotionally. But in private therapy sessions, women are confessing they lost attraction to their boyfriends and husbands the moment they became too emotionally available. One woman told her therapist, "He started crying about his job stress every week and I couldn't look at him the same way. I felt terrible about it, but I stopped wanting to sleep with him." Another said, "I asked him to open up more, and he did. Now, I wish he hadn't. I don't want to be his therapist." Cold? Maybe, but it's real. There's a difference between being emotionally intelligent and being emotionally dependent. Women want a man who has emotional depth, sure, but they don't want to become your emotional dumping ground. They don't want to be the person you fall apart in front of every time life gets hard. They want a rock, someone stable, someone who can handle his emotions without needing constant reassurance and validation. The moment you become the one always needing support, the dynamic shifts. She becomes the parent. You become the child. And you can't be both a child and sexually attractive to the same person. Confession number 2. I fantasize about other men even though I love my boyfriend. This confession came up repeatedly. Women in long-term relationships admitting they think about other men, sometimes random guys at the gym, sometimes their ex, sometimes a coworker or friend. And here's the kicker. It's not because their boyfriend is bad. It's not because they don't love him. It's because he became too predictable, too safe, too comfortable. One woman confessed, "My boyfriend is amazing. He does everything right. But I catch myself fantasizing about this guy at work who barely acknowledges me. I feel horrible about it." The therapist explained what's happening here. When a relationship loses tension, when there's no challenge, no mystery, no edge, women's minds wander. Not because they're bad people, because humans are wired to be attracted to what they can't fully predict or control. This is why the nice guy who does everything right often loses to the guy who's a bit unpredictable, a bit challenging, a bit less available. It's not fair, but it's psychology. The moment you become completely predictable, always available, never saying no, never creating any tension, her brain starts looking for stimulation elsewhere. Even if she loves you, even if she'd never actually cheat. The thoughts are there because you've made yourself too easy to figure out. Confession number 3. I test him to see if he'll stand up to me. Multiple women admitted to their therapist that they deliberately test their men. They'll pick fights over nothing. They'll be unreasonable. They'll push boundaries just to see what happens. And they're not doing it to be cruel. They're doing it subconsciously to answer one question: is this man strong enough to handle me? One woman said, I'll start an argument about something stupid just to see if he'll push back or if he'll just agree with everything I say to keep the peace. When he just agrees, I lose respect for him. Another confessed, I know I'm being difficult sometimes. Part of me wants him to tell me to stop, to set a boundary, but he never does. He just takes it, and it makes me feel like I'm with someone weak. This is the test most men fail without even knowing they're being tested. She acts unreasonable, and you think the right move is to be understanding, to avoid conflict, to keep her happy by giving in. But that's not what she actually wants. She wants to know you have a backbone, that you won't bend to her every mood, that you're strong enough to stand your ground when necessary. I'm not saying be a jerk. I'm saying have boundaries. Have principles you won't compromise on. Be willing to call out unreasonable behavior instead of enabling it. That's what creates respect. And without respect, there's no lasting attraction. Confession number 4. I wish he'd just take charge instead of always asking me. This one destroys the modern narrative about consent and communication. Obviously, consent is non-negotiable, but there's a difference between consent and constant asking permission for everything. Women confessed feeling exhausted by men who won't make decisions, who always ask, "What do you want to do?" or "Is this okay?" or "Are you sure?" for every single thing. One woman told her therapist, "I wish just once he'd plan the date without asking me where I want to go. I wish he'd initiate sex without checking in 5 times to make sure I'm comfortable. I know he's trying to be respectful, but it's killing the passion. There's something deeply unattractive about a man who can't lead, who needs constant approval, who's so afraid of making a mistake that he never makes a decision." Women want a man who can read the room, make a choice, and move with confidence. Not a dictator, not someone who ignores her preferences, but someone who can take charge without needing his hand held through every decision. Leadership is sexy, indecision is not. Simple as that. Confession number 5. I stayed because I didn't think I could do better, not because I wanted to. This is probably the most brutal confession. Women admitting they're in relationships not out of genuine desire, but out of fear they won't find anything better. They're settling, and they know it, but they're too afraid to leave because he's a good guy, or it could be worse, or I'm getting older and my options are shrinking. One woman confessed, I don't love him the way I should, but he treats me well, and I don't know if anyone else will. So I stay, and I feel terrible about it. This happens when a man positions himself as the safe choice instead of the exciting choice, when he makes his entire value proposition, I'll treat you better than those other guys. When he's the backup plan, not the first choice. You don't want to be someone's safe option. You want to be someone she actively chooses because she can't imagine being with anyone else. And that only happens when you're living a life that's genuinely compelling, when you're growing, building, creating, when you're the prize, not the consolation. Look, these confessions are uncomfortable. They contradict the politically correct narrative about relationships. But uncomfortable truths are more useful than comfortable lies. Women aren't monsters for thinking these things. They're human. They're responding to evolutionary psychology that's been hardwired over thousands of years. And pretending that psychology doesn't exist because it's not fair. That's how you stay confused and frustrated. You can either get angry at this information, or you can use it. You can either complain that women don't want what they say they want, or you can pay attention to what they actually respond to and adjust accordingly. The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know what women really say when they think no one's listening. What you do with that information will determine everything.